variables. So we're going to look at variables today. Variables are nothing more than reserved memory locations to store values. This means that when you create a variable, you reserve some space in memory to hold the value that the variable represents. So when I do this, I create a variable called x, so it creates memory space for x, it stores 10 into it. And based on the data type of the variable, the operating system allocates memory and decides what can be stored in that reserved memory. Therefore, by assigning different data types of variables, you can store integers, decimals, or characters into these variables. And you can see where this material is edited from. You can get more information from that website. So memory location, the idea is, so you've got some variable x. It's got some memory location here. I just made up some random numbers. It's usually in hexadecimal, which is base 16. That's why you see letters in there. And then the memory location is a series of binary numbers, which are just ones and zeros. And so the ones and zeros tell you the information, the value that the variable stores. So this is the memory location. This is the name of the variable. And this is the value that the variable stores. So there are two types of data available in Java. Primitive data types and then reference/object data types. Now we're going to focus on the primitive data types. There are 8 primitive data types supported by Java. Primitive data types are predefined by the language and named by a keyword. Now we're only going to look at a few of these in detail, and we're just going to briefly examine the others. So first, we have an int. So there's a lot of information about these that we're going to look at. So an integer is a data type that's a 32-bit signed to complementary integer. In other words, it's signed so it can have positive or negative values. This here is the the minimum value, and this here is the maximum value. You can see the size of the number it actually is. Now, an int is generally used as the default data type for integral value unless there's a concern about memory. In other words, if maybe it's too big or maybe it's too small. There are other data types that do the same thing as in integers, but they're either smaller or bigger than integers. And the default value of an integer is 0. A double. A double is a data type as a double precision floating point. The data type is generally used as the default data type for decimal values. Generally, it's the default choice here. So the double data type should never be used for precise values such as currency because it's floating point. And we'll look at that in a later lesson. And the default value is 0.0. So one major difference between the double and then the integer is just the fact that a double can contain decimal values. It's also larger. The double 64-bit, the integer was 32-bit. A Boolean data type represents 1 bit of information. So in other words, it's either a 0 or a 1, which means it's either true or false, and that's it. And we use this for simple flags to track true and false conditions, and its default value is false. A char is a data type that has a single 16-bit Unicode character. Minimum value you can see here, and then the maximum value you can see here. Character data type is used to store any character, so you can store the single letter like A or B. You can store a symbol like the pound sign or a money symbol. You can store numbers. Anything that is a Unicode character you can store in here. Now there are other data types. Like I said, we're not going to look at them in detail. Byte as a data type is an 8-bit signed 2 complement integer. Short is a 16-bit signed 2 complement integer. Long, so long as data type 64-bit signed 2. So if you think about it, all of these here, byte, short, and long, are the same thing as an int, except they're different sizes. And a float is the same thing as a double, but it's smaller. And there we go. That is the end of this lesson.